Well, hello, good evening. Welcome. This is Business Focus. We're live from our studios here at Desawick and also live on TV Gun on Facebook, DSTV channel 279, all across the world on 3news.com. I am Alfred Akansi. This evening, we'll take a look at the IMF program review as the economy shows signs of growth, but concerns have been raised about the sustainability of these measures, especially as government is yet to take measures and steps to reduce the expenditure aspect of things. Okay, what measures have to be put in place to sustain the increase in gains? We will also delve into that here on Business Focus. We'll also have on the discussion this evening the high rate of non-performing loans of banks, which stands now at 20%. That's a 5-year all-time high, and it's raising concerns, especially for banks and also some financial analysts. Plus, spare parts dealers at Abossey are calling out officers of the Ghana Revenue Authority for intimidation, and also matters relating to the high influx of the imported goods into the country. It's also raising fundamental questions. We'll get into that here on Business Focus. I am Alfred Akansi. Now, let me just give you an idea of some of the stories that have made headlines in the world of business over the last 24 hours. Take a look.
In Business Today, the Food and Beverages Association of Ghana, FABAG, says the influx of smuggled goods into the country is collapsing legitimate businesses. The Bank of Ghana's Summary of Economic and Financial Reports indicates Ghana's imports dropped by about 14.7% between August 2022 and August 2023. However, Executive Director of FABAG, John Awuni, believes the reduction is as a result of smuggling that are not captured by customs. Interest rates on government's treasury bills have gone up to 32.85%, although the auction recorded an undersubscription of about 2.7%. At the end of the latest treasury auction, government secured about 2.49 billion cedis, although it targeted 2.57 billion cedis. China's investments in its power sector may exceed $13.7 trillion from 2020 to 2060, according to the State Grid Corporation of China. The time frame of the investment is in line with President's pledge for China to attain net zero emissions of greenhouse gases, including carbon dioxide, by 2060.
That's more news on 3news.com. Make some time and visit 3news.com. Let's get into it here on Business Focus now, because we're looking at figures from the Bank of Ghana revealing that non-performing loans in Ghana's banking sector have surged to 20% of all loans, hitting a peak of about that 20% not witnessed in half a decade. That's for the last 5 years gone by we're looking at now, and there's no indication of the ratio, this non-performing loans ratio, slowing down. According to the data from the central bank, the ratio increased by 0.9% from the previous ratio of 19.1%. And we're going to put that on the screen right now, in July 2023, showing that 1 out of every 5 loans given is issued, in fact, not being paid back, or is long overdue for interest or principal payment as of August 2023. That's the information captured in the Bank of Ghana's own data, the monthly financial soundness indicators in the banking sector. The non-performing loans you see there, that is the light green that's curve you see in this particular graph, the graphical representation of it. It is also an indication that huge concessions are not being refinanced by borrowers, a situation that is detrimental to the health and efficiency of the banking sector. From what we gleaned from the data from the Bank of Ghana, since October 2022, the non-performing loans ratio has been on a steady climb, starting at 14% and ascending by a remarkable 6 percentage points to its current levels. That's what you see there. If you look at January 2023, the NPL ratio was 15.67%. In February, it increased to 16.56%. In March, it increased to 16.85%. Then in April, it increased to 18%. And now we're talking about 20%. So on average, between January and August 2023, the non-performing loans, that's the loans advanced by commercial banks and it not being paid back. One out of every 5 loans cannot be paid back to the banks. And what we are saying is that between January and August 2023, the ratio has been around 17.9%, higher than the average for the same period in 2020, 2021, and 2022. A clear reflection of the state of the economy. Now, this is how the July-August looks like from the data that we gleaned from the central bank's data and how things are looking like. And especially because of the economic situation that we find ourselves in and how that is playing out, especially in this non-performing loans data that the Bank of Ghana put across. Now, this is it. In July, it went up to 19.1%, and in August, we're talking about an NPL rate of 20%. That is captured in the Financial Soundness Indicator report of the Bank of Ghana. Now, let's stay on this a bit further. And because of the implications that this has, John Ewuah is the Chief Executive Officer of the Ghana Association of Banks. Dr. Richmond Etuahene is also banking consultant. Gentlemen, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us here on Business Focus. Start off with you, Mr. Ewuah. With this increase we've seen over the period, we started this year with a non-performing loans ratio of about 17.9%. Now we're talking about 20%. Certainly must be of concern to you, commercial banks, is it not?
You know, we've stated this time without number that, you know, we have heightened NPL pressures. We all know the economic situation that as a country we find ourselves in. We've gone through a very difficult period of debt restructuring. As a country, we've not come out of the woods yet. So businesses are not operating at peak. Individuals and households have had their incomes almost halved through depreciation of the currency and also through inflation. So all this together is more or less like a perfect storm. And where interest rates are hovering now, the interest burden on borrowers is also enormous. So together, you have more or less a perfect storm of a teacup full of all the variables that go to create impairment pressures. And that is exactly where we are at the moment. Yes, moving from 18% to 20% from one quarter to the other is significant. And it's something that as an industry worries us quite a lot.
Mr. Ewuah, some analysts that I've been talking to have also projected that this increasing rate of non-performing loans is not going to stop anytime soon. In fact, the NPL rates are actually going to go higher in the next quarter and at least the next 2 quarters ahead of us.
Yeah, it's concerning and it's worrying at the same time because we've not seen an end to the interest rate hikes. I don't know where the T-bill cleared. We'll know by Monday for this week's auction. And all those variables go into the lending rate that banks give. You know, most of the loans on the books of the banks are referenced to the Ghana reference rate. And the Ghana reference rate is the interplay of 3 key rates. You have the interbank rate, the T-bill rate, and the policy rate. Yes, the policy rate was maintained at the last MPC meeting at 30%. But once the T-bill rate keeps going up, it has implications for the interbank rate. And the two will weigh down whatever impact the policy rate will have. And therefore, you have a reference rate, which in the last couple of months, you know, we've seen consistent upward adjustment. So the borrower may not have done anything bad, but in January, maybe the loan repayment was 200,000 every month. All of a sudden, they are having to cough up 350,000 or 300,000 every month. Unfortunately, in an environment where the cash flow situation may not have improved because demand is low and the spending power of the population is also at this, minimum, a stage. if you compare to prior year and even the year before. So we all are sitting here and watching the space and monitoring very closely where the macro fundamentals are moving. And as banks, and I'm sure my colleagues will be balancing their books in terms of looking at which asset class to touch and which asset class to maybe do play a wait and see or take a second look at, and also which risk metrics you have to maybe tighten in a period, a difficult period such as the one we are witnessing.
But Dr. Chene, let me come to you on this point, and I know you've been doing quite some work in this. You also, based on your analysis and the data that you have gleaned from the banks themselves, also project that this non-performing loan ratio is going to continue rising in the coming months.
Thank you very much. Good evening to your viewers and listeners. I believe the trend will go up further. The reason why I'm saying that the harsh microeconomic environment, which has persisted over the last 2 years, is now reflecting in the bank's non-performing. What I mean by higher interest rate, depreciation of the currency. If you remember last year, depreciation was of 54%. The currency depreciated more than 30%. Prices, energy prices went up. All these things are now resurfacing in the bank's loan portfolio. So for me, it will definitely, it's not going to stop at 20. I believe it will edge up maybe to 25 before coming down finally.
It will edge up to 25. And I'm looking at the Bank of Ghana data right now. Have there been any interventions, Dr. Chene, from where you sit to cushion the banks, as it were, against this projected continuous increase in non-performing loans based on the state of the economy primarily, which is also taking a toll on the banks in many ways?
Well, the interventions, what the government said is going to do, especially about the financial stability. Because you see, Alfred, it is not only the microeconomic environment. Banks have their capital eroded by the DDEP, and that issue has not even been resolved. And then we are facing another challenge on the non-performing, which all creates insolvency of the various, the insolvency of the banks in this country. So the earlier the operationalization of the financial stability, which we have talked so much about, is done, the better for the banks. That is only one leg. That is only one leg. That one is solve the insolvency of the industry after the DDEP. But when you come to the portfolio side, the loan portfolio side, the government too has to be very quick in repaying some of the indebtedness. Look, contractors haven't been paid huge sums of money. And at least last month, we saw the food supply to the SHS, the buffer stock, they came in, they had to overstay 3 days, talk before they got paid. The same thing applies to other suppliers, to MDAs, to government, and what have you. So if government could squeeze himself and pay these loans, especially the contractors are huge amount of money, and they've all taken loans. So the intervention for the government is to make sure that all those outstanding contractors from 2018 to 2022 must be paid. And if they pay, there's a wonderful intervention. Definitely the NPLs will come down to a reasonable level, which is acceptable to the industry.
Mr. Watt, so the state of the economy cannot be disassociated from the increasing rate of the non-performing loans that we are seeing over the last 8 to 10 months, isn't it?
That's exactly what I said. You know, the managers of the economy are the ones who control the fundamentals. And whether we like it or not, as players within the economy, we are affected by those decisions or those outcomes from the decisions in terms of where interest rate is, inflation, exchange rate, and all the other fundamentals that go to impact the macros. And it is a macro that disaggregates into the micro, into the household, and to the person. So to the extent that the macros are not as yet in the best of shape, the hope is that once the DD situation is done, the debt exchange is done, we are able to bring closure to the foreign, the Eurobonds, and all the other bilateral debts have been properly negotiated and we brought proper closure. It is possible, very possible or likely that we are going to have some form of confidence coming back into the market. Most of these sentiments are fed by speculation, resulting from confidence, which is a bit lacking because people are not certain when these other legs or fronts of the debt operations, is going to come to an end.
Mr. Wa, talk about the impact of the domestic debt exchange program on you, the banks. Dr. Chiahene, you just heard, was talking about the Financial Stability Fund that government promised you, that 15 billion CD Financial Stability Fund. What's the latest with that? Have you got any information from the Finance Ministry, you, the banks?
Yes, we are aware that the committee, the investment committee, is being put together. They asked for representatives from the banks. They've asked reps from other stakeholder groups. So it's most likely that we are going to, at least one good news coming out from that side is we're going to have the Financial Stability Fund in operation sooner rather than later.
When exactly is this coming? You just talked about a committee in place. Do you have any timelines for the work of the committee?
Unfortunately, it's not in my hands.
But, well, if you know that in this country, politicians, when you say very soon, sometimes it could take very long in the language of politics. So if you have been told that very soon a committee has been established and so on, shouldn't you be asking for timelines?
Oh, no, we've come a long way. We've come from a period where we had no proper visibility on when this was coming to a close. Now we are at a stage where the investment committee is the committee that is going to take decisions on allocation of capital, particularly for the funds for the solvency arrangements. So once these people or stakeholder groups have brought their nominations, we have every indication to have some confidence, a lot of confidence that the Financial Stability Fund is in its final stages of coming into action.
Well, I thank you for your time, and then also we'll be monitoring that. And unfortunately, you don't have any timelines that we can also go by. But for you, Association of Banks, we will be knocking on your doors as well, consistently to get updates that you get from the Finance Ministry on the establishment of this Financial Stability Fund. It's been long overdue. But thank you. John Ewa is the Chief Executive Officer of the Ghana Association of Banks. And also to you, Dr. Richmond Chiahene is a banking consultant. Appreciate your time here on Business Focus. Now, the International Monetary Fund, this is not very far away from what we've been talking about so far, because it is the state of the economy that's impacted on persons who have taken loans from the banks and they are unable to pay, which is resulting in this increasing non-performing loans. The IMF expects Ghana to quickly reach an agreement with the official creditor committee over its external debt restructuring. In fact, Julia Kojak, the IMF Director of Communications, at a press briefing earlier in Washington, D.C., said once Ghana has finalized the debt exchange on the local front, it is important for the country to conclude negotiations with external bilateral creditors. Here are the three areas that Ghana's program is hinged on, the three specific objectives that the Ghana's IMF program is hinged on, which we'll be showing you shortly as we go on. Let me welcome Professor Lord Mensah, is a professor of finance and is also an economist at the University of Ghana Business School. Thank you so much, Professor Lord Mensah, for joining us here on Business Focus. So I'm looking at the IMF's own statement and talking about the rounding up or the conclusion of the domestic debt exchange program. Do you get the sense that DDEP, the local DDEP, has been concluded per what we saw recently, where the pensioner bondholder said, look, we don't want to be part of this, so don't include us? Is it concluded? If you can unmute for me. Hello? Okay. So while we rectify that, these are the objectives captured for Ghana's IMF program. Now, take a look at this. The 3 areas of focus for Ghana's IMF program. These 3. First off, talking about the issues of restoring macroeconomic stability, ensuring debt sustainability, and then also laying the foundation for higher and more inclusive growth. These are the 3 areas of the focus of Ghana's IMF program objective and the pillars. We'll go for this quick break. When we're back, we would rectify that connection with Professor Lord Mensah to have a conversation on this latest from the IMF program. Stay with us. We'll be back shortly. This is Business Focus. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to demonstrate to you the superior properties of Flamingo paint as compared to other paint brands on the market. We take equal quantities of Flamingo paint and this ordinary paint. We then dilute them with water. And now, let the test begin. The gentleman on the left is going to apply the ordinary paint, and the gentleman on my right will use the Flamingo superior paint. As you can clearly see, Flamingo has the obvious better hiding. Furthermore, Flamingo has painted a much larger area. You know, 1 bucket of Flamingo paint is equal to several buckets of any other paint brand on the market. Flamingo paint is made with superior formulation to give superior durability, superior hiding, superior coverage. Flamingo paint, simply superior.
At ShopRite, we are committed to bringing you lower prices every day. That's why we've kept the price of our in-store bread at a low 15 cedis, 99 pesos worth, and we will keep it there. Plus, get great deals like 4.5 kg Abina Vietnam rice, only 84 cedis, 99 pesos worth. 340 grams Sadia chicken franks for only 13 cedis, 99 pesos worth, and 500 grams good start white oats for just 13 cedis, 99 pesos worth. Never pay more than the ShopRite price, only at ShopRite.
Auditioning. Media General Group is hereby inviting all interested persons who aspire to become news presenters for auditioning as follows. Date: Thursday, October 5, 2023. The time is 9 a.m. Venue is at the premises of Media General Ghana. Required competencies: excellent reading skills, fluent in English, excellent editing skills, outgoing, abreast with local and international developments, news gathering and reporting skills, good writing, communication and presentation skills, ability to think creatively, and good research skills. Qualification: first degree in social sciences, communication or journalism and related disciplines. Master's degree is preferred.
The expert at anything was once a beginner.
I seek for unmatched work experience that will prepare me for the real job.
Internship can help you stand out in a competitive job market.
I want to be an intern in one of Ghana's most reputable companies.
In the heart of the corporate world, there's a search for the next top intern.
On this journey, some aspiring interns will get to embark on an unforgettable adventure.
These interns will face a series of real-world challenges and tasks.
For the next top intern on the Top Intern reality show, ambition meets determination. From the tasks to the boardroom to alliances and to winning. Who will be the ultimate top intern? Get ready for an epic internship showdown. To be part of this reality show, aspiring participants should have at least a second-class upper and above. Register now at forms.mg.com.gh/topintern. Who sweeps the top prize of an internship at a reputable company, cash prizes, and many more.
Are you the one?
The top intern we're looking for, be you?
The top intern. Today's learners, tomorrow's leaders.
Welcome back to Business Focus on TV3. Now, Professor Lord Mensah is joining us again now on Zoom. Professor Mensah, thank you so much for joining us here on Business Focus. So, the IMF is expecting that Ghana would quickly reach an agreement with the official creditor committee over its external debt restructuring. From your own analysis, and especially the concern that the creditor committee had raised, is this agreement going to be reached anytime soon?
Yeah, so the condition was that we're supposed to finish the domestic debt exchange, done with it and dusted, and then possibly proceed to the international, engagement with our creditors. But from the way the finance minister has been going about the debt exchange, which we don't seem to be having an end in sight. I'm wondering, the grounds or what leverage that we're going to have in engaging our external creditors. So we should understand that the more we prolong our domestic debt exchange, the more unlikely we can engage, our external creditors and come to conclusion as to how, the external debt restructuring should look like. So that is why we have been complaining that, for the fact that the finance minister doesn't seem to be ending the debt exchange and he has more or less operationalized it, being a continuous action in economic management, it's going to be difficult for an external creditor to, accept whatever we put on the table. Because once you announce, a debt exchange and you continue to announce the debt exchange, it sends a signal that your achievement in terms of debt restructuring, maybe you've not been able to meet them. And that is why you keep on announcing the debt exchange. Probably that might not be the objective, but, as a third party sitting somewhere that I don't have an inside information as to how, our debt numbers are looking like. Anytime the finance minister announces, a debt exchange, I take it as, our debt has not been gotten to a sustainable level where it can be managed. And therefore, if you want to engage an external creditor, you don't have much leverage. And sometimes your negotiations, with these external creditors may not be that effective, when you have not finished with, your domestic debt exchange.
See, but if you look at the areas, in fact, the IMF is talking about the next steps on the debt restructuring being one, the focus on the official creditor committee agreeing with Ghanaian authorities on the specific modalities of debt relief, and for the authorities to continue to engage the external creditors for relief on their external debt, which they're certainly not going to go down the path of just forgiving us our debt and not making demands. Already China a month ago had indicated that if the IMF wants them to give so much of our debts owed them away, then the World Bank and the IMF should also be ready to give so much of their debt away. That kind of posture, how much of a challenge is it going to be for us?
Yeah, so before you appreciate the possible positioning of our external creditors, we should look at the kind of debt that we owe them, and then the sourcing of those debt, the transmission of the sourcing. Now, these are debts that chunk of them are commercial. The treatment of commercial debt is different from owing, IMF, owing, World Bank, and then more or less looking at it as a concessionary, kind of loan. And in the end, it can be repackaged, and sometimes, debt forgiveness comes in.
But do you get the sense, because Ghana is eyeing some debt forgiveness from external creditors in a bid to bring our debt levels to sustainable realms? Because if you look at the current external debt portfolio of about $52.3 billion owned by these external creditors, will this posture of trying to get debt forgiveness really be achieved?
Well, that is why I mentioned earlier that you forgive the debt in anticipation of maybe social return, in anticipation of financial return, not in the immediate term, but then in the long term. I don't foresee any kind of, forgiveness of debt, because if you owe a commercial entity and the commercial entity is targeting, financial returns, there's no social connotation to it. They're not waiting for you to get better so that your humanitarian grounds, you reduce poverty and all those. Those are objectives for IMF and the World Bank, not for, commercial, lenders that we find ourselves with now in our current state of, our debt structure. So from where I sit, I don't think we have any forgiveness.
Okay. Professor Lord Mensah, I thank you very much for your thoughts on this. And as always, really appreciate you. We'll be certainly focusing on the IMF and how things are playing out in the coming days, because as we do know, the IMF mission staff arrived in this country for the first major assessment of the $3 billion bailout program. And so we keep an eye on that as well. But this is Business Focus. We'll be back shortly after this quick break, because there are concerns about the influx, in fact, the decline of imports, even though we're not seeing a shortage of goods on the market. So what's happening? Stay with us. We'll be back shortly.
At ShopRite, we are committed to bringing you lower prices every day. That's why we've kept the price of our in-store bread at a low 15 cedis, 99 pence worth, and we will keep it there. Plus, get great deals like 1.3 kilogram Sadia whole frozen chicken, only 49 cedis, 99 pence worth. And 1 liter Cindy sunflower oil for just 39 cedis, 99 pence worth. Never pay more than the ShopRite price, only at ShopRite.
Auditioning. Media General Group is hereby inviting all interested persons who aspire to become news presenters for auditioning as follows. Date: Thursday, October 5, 2023. The time is 9 a.m. Venue is at the premises of Media General Ghana. Required competencies: excellent reading skills, fluent in English, excellent editing skills, outgoing, abreast with local and international developments, news gathering and reporting skills, good writing, communication and presentation skills, ability to think creatively, and good research skills. Qualification: first degree in social sciences, communication or journalism and related disciplines. Master's degree is preferred.
Welcome back to Business Focus. Now, there's been concerns raised about the reduction in imports because of what's happening at the ports. But then again, we're not seeing a reflection of it on the market because it's not leading to the shortage of goods. So what's happening, really? Michael, what do the statistics say about this situation that we're faced with?
Well, thank you, Alfred. You know, at this time where raising revenue is a key priority for government, especially as we are trying to get the economy back on its feet, there are some very concerning figures we are picking up from the ports. Year on year, as at August 2023, we've seen a concerning decline at the ports at about, we see almost 2 billion difference in decline at the ports. Okay, well, about 14.7% to be exact, over the last 1 year. And that is a lot of concern, or everybody should be concerned about this, because if the traffic at the ports is declining, obviously means that we are losing revenue, which is crucial to us right now as a country as we are trying to raise revenue and revamp the economy. Let's go to stats on rice. We see 2019, 520,000 metric tons. 2020, we see some marginal decline, but still in the 500,000 range. 2021 saw a very good spike. I'm sure that's about the time that the whole benchmark value discounts conversation came into fore. I think 2022, there was a revision in it. We see some marginal, some decline also over there. And then at the end of the year also, as part of government's 2023 budget, some new taxes were introduced, others were reviewed. And now we are beginning to see the figures drop. Well, maybe too early to conclude entirely based on the figures that we have, because this is just probably that of the first 2 to 3 quarters of the year. But then looking at the figure and the difference, this is actually reporting already more than half the year, less than 50% what was recorded at the end of last year, which is quite concerning, because if we are looking at raising money at the ports, then we should be seeing traffic go up. So I'm sure Mr. Oni would help us understand what really goes into all of that. Maybe it's the fact that, for instance, rice, maybe the local production capacity has shot up, and so people are now consuming local rice, or that people are probably using a back route.
In fact, I want to hold you on to that point, and stay with me, Michael Obodo, with the business team, 3 Business. John Awoni, since you mentioned his name, so that's in studio. He is the executive member of the Food and Beverages Association of Ghana. Thank you, Mr. Awoni, for joining us here on Business Focus. So we've seen the statistics clearly reflects that there's a reduction in imports, for instance, rice, but there's no corresponding shortage of these items on the market. So what's happening?
Well, clearly, the figures don't lie. And I would say that the records that you are seeing in terms of 14.7% in terms of reduction in imports, I think that the figures have far outweighed that. If you look at surveys in the various markets in Accra for commodities, you will find out that there's a reduction of about 60% in terms of legal imports.
Legal imports?
Legal imports, that is who's coming through the various ports, the various legal entries, that is Tema Port, whereby you have duties clearly paid and then all that. If you look at Tamale, we have about 70% of the goods being illegally imported. If you look at Techima, Kumasi, Sunyani, thereabout, we have about 70% same. And these are goods that are coming in from unapproved routes. Generally, I've been in the industry over 20 years, and this is not a new phenomenon, but it's normally would increase and then also reduce. And in recent times, there's a major increase in illegal imports of goods. And that is why these figures clearly point to the fact that there's a reduction in imports by 14.7%. But the reduction is far more than that, and those are the ports will clearly confirm that.
And that's what you're saying, that about 60% of legal imports, that is imports that go through the legal formal system at the ports.
Correct.
That is the probably, for instance, the ICOMS system captures that data.
Correct.
It's gone down by 60%.
It's gone down by 60%. What we see in the market.
Okay.
What we see in the market as against what has come through the legal system, we see that there's no, like you said in your story, there's no shortage of goods in the market. If there is a shortage, then we say that yes, it confirms whatever. There's no shortage.
So you are now pointing to that lack of shortage of these goods, even though there's a reduction in imports, to smuggling or like illegal imports.
Illegal imports, and that's generally what smuggling. You will see, in fact, walk into the Ghanaian markets and you will find goods clearly labeled in French. Goods clearly labeled in French, whether it is rice, it is sugar. I will not mention other whatever brands we are on air, but clearly let the Food and Drugs Authority go into the Ghanaian markets.
Because if you look at the tons of rice reduction, but we are not seeing a reduction in the rice.
You can't see a reduction in the market because there are imports coming in because the music has changed and the dancers too have changed their way of dancing. The tax rate is kind of very punitive. You have over 50% of tax on a bag of rice, on a box of chicken, on sugar, and general commodities. So what you find out is that, and I've said it in earlier this year, that most players in the industry are re-strategizing and repositioning themselves to locate themselves in neighboring countries like Cote d'Ivoire. The Cote d'Ivoire, there's no tax on rice. So if I go and position my company in Cote d'Ivoire, and you are my client, I would invoice you, give you an invoice in Ghana here. You go to Cote d'Ivoire, go and pick it up, and then find your own route and then come in. And generally, because of the economic situation, there are unapproved routes people will use. There are also approved routes they will use, and still the border officials there will compromise because they also have to survive. And basically, that is what is happening, and any good. And this is not something that is arguable. That no, it is true, it is not true. Every product that is in the French market will be labeled according to French standards. Yeah. So it will be in French.
Yes.
Goods in the English-speaking countries will be labeled in English according to our standards. So when you find a French product coming into the Ghanaian market, they cannot immediately change the labeling. So you'll find them writing the goods written and labeled in French. And that is what clearly the authorities can see. Let the post surveillance units of the customs, let them go into the markets, let them find out why is this good labeled in French? Why is this product labeled in French? And you would understand that clearly these are against our labeling, because you and I don't read French. We don't understand, so to say. So why would they label in French? How do we read and even understand how to use the product? This is something that is happening because they do that in order to circumvent the processes, in order to cut down cost. Because if you find out that a landing cost of a bag of rice, or let me say a bag of sugar.
So you have this list. Let's put the port duties and charges on this list.
You have it there.
So all of this is on what? A bag of rice?
It's all on this, on the bag of rice, or chicken, or any product.
So I got the idea that they said these import duties were increased so that to discourage importation and then also encourage local production of rice and other items.
This has been the same old story since 2000. I have been part of high-level meetings at the ministry level. I've been part of the late Kodet Kwashige's team to help boost rice production, boost chicken production. We're part of part of the various governments. We even had a situation where in the former President Mahaman's regime, they even placed a ban on a quota system for poultry. It turned out to be a money-making venture for those who were authorized to give the quotas for the...
So in your view, what has to be done now?
clearly the taxes must go down, broaden the taxes, because people have re-strategized to circumvent the processes, because disposable income of consumers have gone down so very much. And because of that, sales has significantly dropped, whether it is juices, whether it is food, whatever food stuff, sales has dropped across board. In some cases, where people used to sell about 10,000 metric tons of their product in a month, they are now selling about 2,000 metric tons. So they will have to, for them to survive, they will have to find processes. And in doing that, some people may not like to go through those routes. And when they don't go through that route, and your product will be what? Expensive in the market.
Right.
And you will not survive.
You will not survive. And indeed, these are questions we'll put to the GRA, the Customs Division of Ghana Revenue Authority, to get some answers.
Very well. I think for the good of the country,
indeed,
we just need to do something for the good of the country, for the good of legitimate businesses. We can achieve something.
Indeed. John, I want to appreciate your time for coming.
Welcome.
As the executive member of the Food and Beverages Association of Ghana, thank you for staying with us here on Business Focus. News 360 is up next. On behalf of the production team, we appreciate your company. I'm Alfred Kanseh. Have a great evening.
Focus is brought to you by
Flamingo Paint. Superior durability, superior hiding, superior coverage, simply superior.